planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
Is the planet stupid?
No. It's the planet, stupid.
It is the planet. The news can oftentimes be grim, but sometimes it can be uplifting. And after a long drought, it would appear that this winter has brought us some relief. The extent of that relief, how it's affecting groundwater supplies, reservoirs, we've discussed off and on here, and I think it will be the focus of some discussion with our eco-journalist, Belinda Waymouth, everybody. Hi, Belinda.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well, and I'm,
Fantastic.
What's that?
I said fantastic. It's good to be well.
Fantastic, yes.
Yeah.
So, well, let's get right into it. What's happening? What is happening with our groundwater supplies?
So obviously, the storms that have been hitting us, and I just sort of can't believe it, just the rain just keeps on coming, and it's wild. And it's like we're having, weather whiplash. We've gone from the 3 driest years in California, and now it's a deluge. But, this is what the scientists, have been telling us. The droughts will be, drougtier, they'll be worse. And when it's wet, it will be wetter. And it's been incredibly destructive, and I really don't want to, it would be remiss not to acknowledge that, because I know for a lot of people, what has happened this winter has been devastating, and the destruction has been huge. But on the other hand, we needed all this water, and it's been really amazing. And I sent, I don't know if you can show it, Kim, it's got some hilarious music that goes with it, but, the recharging of the Diamond Valley Lake Reservoir, which started this week, they turned on the taps. It's been, it supplies 6 million people, and, they could barely give water, for a long time. And to see that being recharged, and they say by the end of the year, because, the snowpack that's up there in the Sierra Nevada, how we get our water during the year is as that snowpack melts and it recharges the aquifers. Well, they say Diamond Valley Lake will be completely back up to full by the end of the year. So, that's amazing. And then, the other story that is really incredible are all these groundwater recharging projects that are happening. What happened in 2014, California passed a law, and it, said, look, water has to be used sustainably. We have to, recharge groundwater. We can't just be, letting farmers, just keep on and on taking, groundwater out. And, when you don't have surface water, which is what the water that we're supposed to use, rivers, lakes, and feeding into our reservoirs, of course, we go into groundwater. And in California, when it's a drought, 60% of the water is coming from, those supplies underground. And then in a non-drought year, it drops down to 40. But what's really wild is looking at these farmers become water farmers. They are flooding their fields. They're flooding fields. And obviously not all fields can be flooded, but, Don Cameron, it's a field that he grew tomatoes on. And you can do pistachios, you can do grapes. What he says, as long as the water stays cool, this is not going to be, damaging to this land. And it's really amazing, because what happened was, first of all, in the, Great Central Valley that we have, it was the water agencies that were creating these basins to collect the water and to recharge, the water table, the water that we don't see that's,
Right.
under the surface, and the aquifers. And then they started, educating and enlisting farmers. And what farmers who really, they know that, water isn't just life, it's their livelihoods, no water, no crops. And so the fact that, these, because that you can't just have these few basins, catching rain in the wet years, they need vast tracts of farmland to really scale up this project. And so farmers are getting on board, and they're doing it. It hasn't actually, from what I, have been sort of gathering is it's not, what they're hoping for is, free water in the future and maybe there'll be money. I mean, obviously there will be compensation because this is an enormous thing to do as a farmer, but the other thing that's happened to farmers is some of them, because of water restrictions, have just had to, leave their fields fallow. So obviously to flood them is way better, flooding better than fallow. That seems like a no-brainer, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you want something going on the field. This is an interesting question that came up. I believe I just saw it maybe from Grady. Aren't aquifers much more important than lakes? I don't know what's more important. I think they both, but maybe you do know.
Well, here's the thing about aquifers. I remember being, taught this in one of my, geography classes is, we really should look at an underground aquifer like our long-term investments. We don't touch those. You put those money in those long-term investments and you leave it there. And that's how aquifers should be treated. I mean, they say that water in, underground aquifers can be 1,500 years old. It's taken centuries and centuries, to build up, that, huge supply. And it really isn't something that we should just be, going into and draining. That said, the Ogallala, aquifer, is empty because of all the farms in, what are the states that use the Ogallala? I mean, it's the hugest underground aquifer, on this continent, and it's, drained, for farming. And
has it been pumped for rebottling also? I know there was a lot of that going on just a few years ago by Nestle, et cetera.
Well, Nestle, they come and take the easy water. Or they wouldn't be drilling into an aquifer, Mark. They just like to go where there's a river that's right upstream of, a California reservoir that, supplies the whole of San Francisco. That's where Nestle likes to get their water. Super accessible and easy, and they just siphon it off in their big trucks and, drive merrily away and barely pay for it. So, that bottling our water and selling it back to us in a plastic bottle, I mean, egregious, nefarious, let me use as many dang words as I can. That is a horrific thing.
That's
all
great.
These states let, Nestle get away with. It's terrible. So how you should look at the water is, the groundwater, what's in the rivers and the lakes, that's our, ready cash. And then, the savings account is when it's, goes into the, the reservoirs, and then the long-term investment is the deep water stuff and, down in the aquifers. And if you look at parts of California, I'll see if I can find these photos, but the water table, because of, farmers digging wells, there are places in California that, have sunk, I can't remember if it's 70 feet. I mean, there are these really wild pictures of poles showing you, how far down the land has subsided because of all the water that's been taken out, from the water table, the below surface water.
I remember you mentioning that in a report, many months ago, that's been one of these weird aspects of losing that groundwater is the sort of concave nature of the land. All of a sudden, it sinks.
Yeah,
concave is a ding word.
So we have to be, we have to. It's the wise use of resources, But there are a lot of people to feed, and there are a lot of people, to hydrate, and.
Sure.
And what I really love about this, this groundwater recharging is, the thing I always say, I love, low tech, high impact. This is low tech, high impact. This is taking flooding water from all these storms and diverting it onto your farmlands and just basically turning them into a sea, and then watching the water, sink into the earth. So I'm really glad that California is doing it. There is
Kim has a note. What is it, Kim, my dear?
Oh, I just wondered if Belinda,
Kim, how are you?
Sent me a video of the snowpack at a Sierra resort. Did you want me to show that?
Well, actually, it was further down in that piece is the video of the Diamond Valley Lake being recharged, and I can't remember if it's if it's CBS, but they've put this really dramatic music on, sort of like to really get your heartstrings going, seeing the water come back in. But but it kind
Well,
of
don't run it because I got a copyright strike on the music. If you run it, you can mute it. Unfortunately,
because I've got something else I wanted to talk about very quickly, and this is not good news, but I sort of feel like the story came out yesterday, and it's just so it's sort of I don't know, it's a bit of a punch in the guts, really.
Please go ahead. What is that?
Okay, so as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, to get, basically Biden sort of had to get in bed with the devil, and the devil is the recalcitrant Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, who would only sign on to the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, if Biden, along with, all this money, the biggest amount of money ever put towards, the shift to renewables, would also open up Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico to drilling. And we know what's happened, the Willow Project, that's now, we talked about that on the show. And then yesterday came, they opened up bids for a swath of the Gulf of Mexico that is the size of Italy. It is so insane. It abuts right up to Louisiana and Texas.
So this is drilling in the Gulf.
Yeah, drilling in the Gulf. And so bids started last night. And so what Biden has sort of essentially done, and I get it's that sort of old school politics, you've got to give something to get what you want, but you've given away the benefits that we're going to reap from all this other stuff, all these monies going towards, renewables and people in their houses if they want to change to heat pumps and, induction stoves, get an electric car. All of that has sort of been wiped out. If you let them drill in the Gulf of Mexico, hello? Literally my head was spinning like Linda Blair when I was reading this story. I just was like, and I did know that he had, made these concessions to get, Senator Manchin to sign on. But, when you see how quickly it happens and how devastating it is going to be. And on top of that, there was a paper just published in the Harvard Law Review that says, hey, you know what? We actually can take oil companies to court for homicide because they are killing people, and that is illegal. That legally is possible. And so I just feel like I really do have kind of whiplash right now with all this,
the good news and the bad. By the way, I'll ding swath. I think that the amazing thing that is so tough, as you say, you maybe put it in the whiplash category, is that these promises from politicians, and Joe Biden isn't alone in this regard, he's certainly the highest profile, but where there will be no new drilling, full stop, under my administration. That's what Joe Biden said, okay? Yes. And then he okays the Willow Project, and we've talked about why, some of the reasons why the Willow Project but I told you why I felt you should contest that project. You should put it off as long as you can. I get it. You're going to lose in court. Fine. Do what Donald Trump does. Go to court anyway, even though you know you're going to lose. It's going to be a long time in court, okay? This is pristine land. Now you're in the Gulf. You're okaying drilling in the Gulf. This just in. Not the safest thing to drill in the Gulf anyway. I'll remind you of Deepwater Horizon and the entire accident involving essentially fouling all of the Gulf Coast. There are businesses there that depend on that. There are fisheries that depend on it. But it's just it's kind of an eco-suicide that these guys do with this crap. And I'm really disheartened by it as well. So.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the 13th anniversary of Deepwater Horizon. And, all those, the wetlands, the bayou, the mangroves, all the defenses that, have already been destroyed. We talked about how much Louisiana is disappearing, a football field, every hour or whatever. It's so insane. We saw Hurricane Katrina and the devastation. And the other thing that, is so heartbreaking for Louisiana is, where does all that oil get refined? It gets refined in Cancer Alley in Louisiana, where, low-income communities of color live cheek by jowl. You see, there are photographs of kids playgrounds with the oil refinery in the background, and then so it's outrageous. It is criminal, I think, and they should be charged with murder for what they're doing, or homicide. But the other thing is it's called Rice's whale. It's a whale that's in the Gulf of Mexico. We're down to 50. So it's like the vaquita and the little Maui dolphin I was talking about in New Zealand that's being, killed by toxoplasmosis. There are just too many ramifications, repercussions, and they're, immediate, ongoing, and here we've got, the IPCC saying we have to get off fossil fuels as fast as possible. And that great story you just sent me this week about the incredible ramping up of wind energy, enough, when we get to, a terawatt, that's enough for 1 billion homes, to power 1 billion homes. I mean,
in short, the story is that wind energy is very viable and is now ramping up around the world in ways that are producing tremendous amounts of energy. So
yeah. So it's a total smokescreen to say that we need to drill more because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's absolute nonsense.
It's the same smokescreen that was used when they wanted to raise the price of gasoline on all of you who drive those combustion engines. I mean, it's absolutely a fraud. You just did not need to. And the oil companies are, if not record, huge profits they're registering. We have to wrap up. So we've had good news and we've had infuriating news. I would say one last thing on the drilling. It's not even about supplies. I consider it flirting with environmental disasters that we've seen before. I mean, I just think it's a wanton. There, look on YouTube if you're watching now. That's the size of the drilling they want to do offshore and the Gulf of Mexico.
And it's right.
It's greed. It's pure greed. It's not about oil supplies that we desperately need.
No. Yeah, it's greed, it's profits, and it's, profits over people all the time. It's the few getting rich while they poison the many, and it's not okay, Mark. It's not okay.
Yeah, it's sad. But Belinda, I'll try to focus on the good news that you brought about the recharging the aquifers here in California. You can find her on social media, Waymouth, Belinda Waymouth, Waymouth. You can find her here on Thursdays. Love visiting with you. Thanks, Belinda.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah.
More. Is the planet stupid?
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Next.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.